Beautiful song that we just got from Unati Mankai. As it is, Lizzie, we're taking us into the first conversation of the day. Your time now is 21 minutes after the hour, 1 o'clock. And I did mention that I will be in conversation with Cumani Nobongoza, founder and business consultant at Requisite. He is already with us in studio. Cumani, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Thandi. Good afternoon to you and the listeners.
All right. What we're talking about, Namhlanje, is, looking into choosing brand elements to build a brand equity. That's where the point, that's the point we're trying to drive home. And we should begin with, defining the end result, because the end result is brand equity.
Equity, yes.
So everyone, I'm thinking businesses strive towards this, but mhlawumbi, just for context, let us begin by defining brand equity. Brand equity.
So brand equity, Thandi, is the differential effect that brand knowledge has on a consumer response to the marketing of that particular brand.
Okay.
Right? So in other words, the power of a brand lies in what resides in the minds of its customers. Simply put.
Ne.
Yeah.
So that is very, in a nutshell, to say it's how you are perceived. It's how the customer perceives you as the business or as that company, and how you have, intentionally positioned yourself, to
Definitely.
be perceived.
Yes.
Now, zininzi elements that go into when one is building, the brand equity. Mhlawumbi, you could just, talk us through some of these elements that one needs to consider as they're building their brand equity.
Okay, so when we talk about brand elements, we are talking about those trademarkable devices that identify and differentiate your brand from the competitors in the marketplace.
Okay.
So just to give you a few, we'd be looking at packaging.
Okay.
How you package your product, especially a physical product. We'd be looking at jingles.
Okay.
Those are the soundtracks that are used in advertising, both TV and radio. We're talking about slogans. We are talking about characters. Brand characters would be umzekelo Oros. You get that round guy, or yes, and then with KFC you get to Colonel Sanders, Elaxeko, Then we also talk about symbols as well. Symbols now are similar to logos in a way. And then we have, if a business yako has a website, we've got what we call uniform resource locators.
Okay.
These specify locations of pages on the web that are commonly referred to as the domain names.
Okay.
So all of these will then group together and form a brand elements that you are able to trademark as that particular business and brand. And like I said initially, they differentiate you from a competition in the market.
Now, someone can talk about, different things around, some of these elements that one needs to consider as they're building, their brand and also, brand equity. And there's a lot of focus around igama le business and ilogo, and confine it only to that. And
it's a starting point. It's a good starting point.
Yes. And people also talk about, memorability. Like you want your brand to be memorable.
Yes.
Without considering all these different brand elements, do you think that you stand a risk of losing on brand equity if you only focus on the logo and the name of the business?
Look, as a smaller business, you obviously don't have the resources to advertise on TV, for example, or on radio. So a good starting point would be a logo and a slogan.
Okay.
Right? Then as the business grows, remember you move now from introduction phase to growth phase. obviously you want to manage a growth phase to make sure that it lasts as long as possible, heading towards a maturity phase. So it just depends on the size of the business and the resources that you have available at your disposal to differentiate your brand even further in the marketplace.
But even if you do have, that logo and the slogan and
Yes.
the name, there, ungakwazi still to be memorable, usaqala at that lower level.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
You definitely can, because what differentiates the smaller businesses compared to the bigger businesses in most cases is agility.
Okay.
Your bigger companies are mostly constrained by bureaucracy.
They can't just change. They can't
You can't, yeah.
Can't be quick.
And even if we are talking about change, it might take a bit of time to implement that change, because we're planning phase. Then we look at what resources do we need as a company that are currently available to implement the plan. So that might take a bit of time. Whereas if it's a one-man show, or there's just two of you in the business, quickly chat about it. So by next week you're in there. Because everything is done quickly. You get to decisions much quicker than a company that has, let's say, 1,000 employees or even more.
Interesting. And when we look at the name, someone once said that there's a lot in the name, and I think in the context of marketing and building a brand and building your brand equity, some people will get into business with fused names. Veluthathe amagama lakho with your spouse and your child, and you get some weird but some unique name. And I wanted you to touch on, but other people will, go deeper into the process. Yes. And what's your take on this? Should you really, spend a lot of time in coming with? I'm just talking about the business name itself, but because that's what will be the first and the point of contact in terms of the brand of the business for abantu.
Correct. Yeah.
So others take it slower. They take the process slower because they're thinking the long-term game in terms of the brand equity and how they want to stand out in the market. And others just, wing it. What should one do there?
Look at how quickly Umeta introduced Threads into the marketplace. Bengakho thought as such, and as a result, there's a possibility that Umeta might now be facing a litigation from Twitter. Because Galogu, the word threads is IP ka Twitter. Anyone will tell you with social media space, the word threads is mostly associated to Twitter.
Okay.
So even your big companies, people that are well established, they tend to rush into the marketplace because babone opportunity at that particular time. Maybe your biggest competitor is going through a crisis. Maybe it's self-inflicted, like what we're seeing with Twitter and all of those changes that are happening.
Yeah.
Then it's up to you now then as a business owner to say, do you want to quickly get into the marketplace and take advantage
of an opportunity that
opportunity
might
exist, or do you perhaps want to take things a bit slower and then hopefully gradually build a client base yakho, and then make back the money that you would have made if you had jumped in. So it just depends on risk appetite, I would say, as the entrepreneur, and then the availability of your resources once again, because you have to remember, is a multi-billion dollar entity. They've already got the staff, they've already got Instagram,
and WhatsApp.
Exactly. So it just depends on those two things, I would say.
Looking at risk is very important, I think, as you're touching on that. Now, kube khona le dynamic, I always see people when they, especially, now with social media and, going the route of social media and using digital marketing, online platforms to put your brand out there, to put your business out there.
Yes.
So you see abanye abantu, I'm running these businesses and, having continuous engagement and community that they build around their brands, and then you find that, they don't necessarily put put effort into the font.
Okay.
Types that they use,
Yes.
the tone that they use, the how they express themselves. It's always, it's different. And I'm talking now in the context of small businesses.
Yes.
How much do you think, it affects the finer details, how much they affect your brand equity that you are building? Do you think that if you're not consistent, it will affect, nyani ke abantu bakubone ngathi all over the place, or maybe it doesn't really matter?
Look, Dandy, it certainly goes a long way, especially ka ukwi introduction phase your business, because that is where you are in essence introducing yourself to potential customers. You are making an impression on investors, potential investors.
Sure.
You are also getting the attention of your competition. So even small things such as color, your color usage, then that goes
Apparently
and
they
links.
have emotions that they, like, it's deeper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you were to study and look at a brand from a scientific point of view, you would then get to a place where each color is attached to a certain emotion, and that triggers something in the mind of your target audience to say, let me try this. Or
Sure.
if for example you want to buy a car, let me go and just test drive just to see, feel le motor. So I would say for your smaller businesses, introduction phase, it is very important to remain consistent.
Okay.
And remember, the introduction phase can be cut short by growth your business, depending on how you engage with the customers. So there's
Okay.
no set way to say this is how long the introduction will take. Yeah, understand? Because you definitely want your business to grow, but at the same time you want to manage your growth.
Sure,
Because
sure.
there are some businesses that will fall over themselves because
Be
they
overwhelmed.
they just couldn't manage a growth their business, and you get to a point where they've bitten more than they can chew.
Sure,
Yeah, understand?
sure.
So from a small business owner perspective, look at the consistency. Have a consistency in mind when you are talking about font, color usage, and then engagement with the target audience, because you have to remember that services are harder to sell than physical products.
Sure.
So when it comes to services, you definitely want to make sure you go the extra mile with the experience that a customer is having. And a customer will have to, at some point, come to your premises. For example, if you have a hair salon, they'll have to come to you unless you want to innovate and say, look, I have a mobile service as well. But still, you have to be there, be part of the experience, your customer. So, izinto ezifana ne-font, ne-color, they go a long way in helping a customer decide okay, I'm going to
buying or
try
not.
a brand kathandi namhlanje because of XYZ. Sometimes customers don't even go through a thought process engako. Maybe they just saw the name and the color
Spark
and something in them decided, you know what, wow, I didn't even know that this brand exists. I didn't even know this service was actually in the market. Let me go try it out.
Wow. Now, when we're looking at, when you're building a brand, you want it to be likable. You want to build a brand that is likable. I don't think anyone wants to build a brand that is not likable. I'm assuming, I'm making an assumption, but on a 90%.
Unless you are intentionally wanting to be controversial for that short period of time.
Oh my word.
Just to court a controversy and then move on.
You see, that strategy is always confuses me. I don't know.
Risky,
But it is. I think it's highly risky, but some people do use it.
Yeah.
So then must get on a general bigger scope
Yes.
of things where a lot more people will fall into this category,
Yes.
in terms of businesses and building their brands, where they want to be likable. Ne? Now, what are some things, do you think, intentional actions or things that can be done by businesses to make their brand more likable? Because I think you might have this thing at the back of your mind where, I want my brand to be liked by people, by my target audience, by my, that specific ideal client I'm trying to chase in the market. But what can I do to ensure that at least I'm able to put out a likable brand?
So once again, we are going to go back to the issue here, resources, and how easily available are the resources. The most easiest way to introduce your brand into the market, whether it's a physical product or a service, is via a product launch.
Okay.
And then obviously now sophistication your product launch
Will be
once again
dependent
depends
on
on
the
the resources
Sure.
that you have.
Sure.
Then once you have launched the product, you want to track, okay, are we hitting sales targets? What kind of feedback are we getting from the customers? Is this aligned to our overall positioning? Then we move on to special events.
Okay.
Where you are saying, okay, we've been around now for 5 years. Back on a lot of businesses like those milestone events.
Sure.
Where they say, we've been around for 10 years, let's engage with the community. Let's do something. Let's get people to come out. Besides them just buying a brand, let's give something back to the community. Yeah, understand? So that then goes in hand with how likable a brand yako is going to be, because now a consumer is not only going to have the experience of the product itself, because now they've bought it, they've tried it, they like it. Now they're going to have any experience, like a social experience, to say,
Sure.
oh, okay, so this is what these guys look like when they are chilling. Let's say, for example, you're just having a braai for your staff and you've invited some of your top customers to come and be part of it. It can be cheese and wine. It depends. So now a customer now gets into a position where they are linking a performance your product that they already like together again with the experience that you are offering them.
The other side.
Yes, the other side, and then it gels, and then that's where resonance and loyalty starts to come in to the fray.
Yeah.
If you look at a brand such as Chicken Licken, for example, even KFC, Nando's, they specifically work on likability by using humor.
Yeah.
Because it's the easiest emotion to get out of someone.
To invoke from
even if it's dry humor, like a savannah.
Oh my word.
I mean, savannah dry humor, you get it.
Yeah. All right. And when you're also looking at adaptability of your brand, sometimes you would see, companies or businesses rebranding, changing, slightly changing, rebranding or improving. I don't know what happens. I think obviously there are many different reasons why they want a fresh feel in the market, or they just want to do that. You remember Skona, or they want to change for so many different reasons. Now, when you're looking at building your brand, how much should you consider adaptability? Because adaptability, do you forecast it before? As I'm designing my brand now and coming up with symbols, with the logos, looking at all those elements, that jingles, the packaging, everything, am I doing it now? In the future, in the future, if I want to change it, if I want to make it adaptable, is our now adapted to the change I want to introduce? Or do you completely put that at the back end and be like, I would today, where this is the only time where I will then, think, well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah. Look, firstly, no one can predict the future to the exact.
Okay, sure.
You understand? So once you talk about adaptability, you also have to remember that some of these brands, they go through a rebranding because now they've found that there are copycats in the marketplace. And obviously, some will say that you copying someone else is the best form of flattery. But not when it hits a bottom line.
Yeah.
So that's one reason that well-established brands and companies would go through a rebranding process. Then in terms of looking ahead into the future, it's very difficult because you don't want to be a brand that is always reactionary.
Okay.
By looking at what competitors are doing, and you try and follow, because you follower. You want to be a brand that responds to the external stimulus that you don't have control over. This now goes back to a SWOT analysis. As are threats and as are opportunities that are constantly out there in the marketplace, and you have no control over. So adaptability speaks to that. Then we have to look at the management team as well, to say how flexible is your management team? How creative are they? Are there structures that restrict flexibility within the business? Or do you have a flat structure in terms of a corporate structure that allows you to maneuver
change,
as a brand and to change as you see fit? Because some of those threats and opportunities you can't predict. You don't know from which direction they're going to come. So xa sezifikile, you don't want to react. You want to respond, because the difference between reacting and responding, kubakho la gap. You want to create a gap between stimulus and what you do thereafter. You understand? So if I say something hurtful to you, Thandi, or say something about your brand, are you going to immediately go onto social media and try and defend yourself? Or are you going to take a step back, give it a week, mull over it, look at the legalities around what I have said about your brand, which is not true on the social media, and then respond. Accordingly. So adaptability, always think of it in terms of, am I reacting or am I responding?
Wow, interesting. And thank you so much for it, Xesha. I think, there's a lot that we have captured in terms of what businesses can be able to look at when they're building, in the journey of building their brand equity. That you have raised practical things that one needs to consider, during that entire process. And we are okay towards the end that, we can't really predict the future, but we can always, find ways. How do we prepare to respond to things that come? Otherwise, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Thandi. I appreciate it.
All right, Mpulabulu Vukani Community Radio, interesting conversation there with Cumani Nobongoza, founder and business consultant at Requisite. Shinkola about choosing brand elements to build brand equity. Right now, we are later going to be touching on some of the points that he made, but right now we are going to be taking a song and getting right into your business updates.